The horse reared suddenly, hooves scraping the dirt, as the wind shifted with a dry, electric snap. Tomas Aguilar pulled hard on the reins, forcing the animal to settle, but his eyes weren't on the trail anymore. They were locked on the figure ahead down the sloping edge of the arroyo beneath the jagged shade of a mesquite tree. A woman was hauling a bundle of firewood across the packed earth, her shoulders curved under the weight. The wind caught her rebozo, flapping it like a flag behind her. Then he saw her belly. Swollen, heavy. 7, maybe 8 months. His chest tightened. His fingers went cold around the reins. "Mari," he whispered. Isadora's voice sliced through the silence. "What is it? What are you staring at?" Tomas didn't answer. He couldn't. Maria Elena Carrillo, his ex-wife. The woman he hadn't seen in 8 months. The woman he'd once believed he'd spend the rest of his life with before their marriage collapsed under dreams that didn't fit in the same house. He dismounted without thinking. His boots hit the ground hard like the drop had knocked something loose inside him. Isadora followed, confused, adjusting her leather gloves. "Tomas. What's going on? Who is she?" But he was already walking toward Mari. She hadn't seen him yet. Her focus was on the ground, step by careful step. Her body moved slower now, her back arched against the pressure of the load and the baby. Their baby, no. He didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. But the math lined up. 8 months since the divorce. A belly that size, that timing, that child. His child. Mari finally looked up. Her eyes widened, and for a second her face went still. Then something shifted, her jaw tightened, her chin lifted, and she kept walking. He stopped in front of her, blocking the path. The wood pressed hard against her chest as she adjusted her grip, but didn't put it down. "Mari," he said, his voice hoarse. "Tomas," she replied flatly. "What are you doing here? You're pregnant." She didn't flinch. "You always were observant." He exhaled, shallow, chest burning. How far along? Mari shifted her weight, her eyes flicking toward the horizon. The wind carried the smell of dry earth and mesquite bark. Almost 8 months. The world tilted. "It's mine." He didn't ask. He didn't need to. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said everything. Why didn't you tell me?" Mari dropped the bundle of wood. The thud echoed in the dusty stillness. She stepped back, arms free now, face flushed from heat and anger, and something else he couldn't name. "I tried," she said, voice sharp. "I came to your house 3 weeks after the divorce. I knocked on your door. Your fiancé answered." Tomas felt a jolt. "Isadora. She said you didn't want to see me, that you were busy building your new life, that there was no place for me in it." From behind, Isadora's heels clicked across the ground, coming closer. "I was trying to protect you," she said coolly. She looked desperate. I didn't think Mari turned on her. I didn't come to beg. I came to inform him, to give him a chance to know. But he'd already replaced me before the ink on the papers dried. Tomas turned toward Isadora. "Is that true?" She didn't blink. "I didn't lie. I just didn't think it was worth dragging you back into something that was already over." Mari's breath trembled, but she stood straight, proud, as always. "So I made a decision. If I was no longer welcome, then I'd raise this child without you, without your money, without your name. Just me and him." Tomas shook his head, helpless, dizzy. "You should have pushed. You should have made me listen." "I did. I knocked on the door. I wasn't going to force my way in." Her eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. "You were done. and I wasn't going to beg. The wood at her feet looked like kindling for something bigger. Now so, burning resentment, drying years, things they'd left unsaid. Tomas looked at her face and saw the same girl who used to climb fences barefoot, who used to wake up at dawn to feed the goats, who used to lean her head against his shoulder when the days felt too long. But she wasn't that girl anymore. And maybe he wasn't that man either. "You shouldn't be carrying this much weight," he said softly, gesturing to the firewood. "Not like this, I'm fine. Let me help, no." He stepped forward. She backed away. "I said no. I don't need you to rescue me, Tomas. But you're carrying my child. Our child. And I've been carrying him for 8 months without you. I've been fine. I am fine." "Why are you being like this?" Mari laughed once short, bitter. "You don't get to ask that. Not after disappearing. Not after building a whole other life in 3 weeks. I didn't know because you didn't want to know." Behind him, Isadora huffed. "This is ridiculous. Are we done here?" "No," Mari said. "You can be." Tomas didn't move as Isadora turned on her heel and walked away, her boots crunching the gravel. "Please," he said again quietly. "Let me do something. Let me be here. I want to help. I don't want to miss this." She picked up the wood again, grunting softly. "You already missed it, Tomas." He stood there speechless, watching her walk back toward the small house at the edge of the field. The same one they'd painted together once. The same land they'd dreamed on once. Wind moved through the orchard behind her, shaking loose the first petals of spring. The setting sun cut across the sky in bruised oranges and violet slashes. He hadn't noticed before how tired she looked, how thin her wrists were, how steady her steps remained despite everything. He knew then that this wasn't something he could fix with apologies or money or empty promises. This would take more than that. From the distance, her voice carried on the wind without turning back. "Go home, Tomas. This ranch doesn't need another ghost. No somos enemigos, Tomas. Pero ya no somos lo mismo." Her words clung to him like dust in the summer wind. Even after he rode back to the ranch house, even as the wind carried the scent of mesquite and smoke, even as Isadora climbed the stairs in silence and slammed the door behind her, Mari's voice wouldn't leave him. Tomas paced the corridor of his father's old house, the walls echoing with every bootstep. The place was big, too big for one man. Its wide arches and tile floors had once made him feel important. Now they just made him feel hollow. His gaze landed on an old photograph hung crooked on the wall, him and Mari on their wedding day, in front of her father's chapel, the morning sun painting their faces gold. She had wild hair back then, and calloused hands from pruning fruit trees. He remembered how her fingers tasted like earth and citrus. They'd married young, he was 26, she barely 23. In love, or at least believing they were. They built a life out of cracked soil and shared labor. Her father had died the year before, and she'd inherited 10 hectares near the edge of the valley, good land fertile, kissed by the irrigation lines from the reservoir. She called it La Amada. Tomas had moved in the next month. He still remembered how she'd woken him on their first morning as husband and wife, sunlight streaming through the curtainless window, her silhouette framed by it hair, still damp from the well, handing him a tin cup of strong coffee. She'd smiled like the world was new, and for a time it had been. They worked that land with their hands and their backs. Planted tomatoes and chili in rows so straight you could see them from the ridge. She handled the chickens and goats, he patched fences and sprayed for blight. There were days they didn't speak much, just worked side by side until the moon rose and the call of coyotes echoed across the hills. Mari had always been content with what they had. She said God gave us enough. We don't need more. But Tomas hadn't seen it that way. He wanted expansion, acreage, influence, machinery, maybe even a processing plant of their own. He saw opportunities just across the highway, old men selling out land going for cheap. He dreamed of having their names known beyond Coahuila, maybe across northern Mexico. He started attending meetings in Torreon with investors, began traveling twice a week. Mari didn't like it, but she didn't stop him. Not at first. I'm building something, he told her one night, the dirt of the road still clinging to his jeans. Something bigger than this. This is already big, she said. You just don't see it. He remembered the fight. Not loud, not violent, just sad. They stood in the kitchen with the kettle whistling and said things that sounded like business but felt like heartbreak. I want a future, he'd said. I already have one, she replied. He asked her to trust him. She asked him to come home more. Neither of them got what they asked for. The silences grew. The house felt smaller. Every conversation became a crossroads, and eventually they stopped talking at all. Just two bodies passing in the same space, each dragging their own vision like a yoke. They filed for divorce in December. It was snowing lightly the morning the papers were signed at the municipal building. Mari wore a shawl over her shoulders. He remembered thinking she looked tired, not angry. She left with the land. He left with the savings. 3 weeks later, he met Isadora at a cotton buyer's banquet. She was sharp-polished, the daughter of one of Don Nazario's business partners. Their courtship was fast, logical. She spoke of equity and partnerships, not fences and goats. She didn't smell like rosemary or molasses. She smelled like perfume and car leather. He told himself that was a good thing. He thought he'd closed that chapter cleanly. Now, 8 months later, he knew better. Tomas stared at the fireplace as the embers flickered. His throat was tight with everything he hadn't said. He didn't even know if Mari had meant to hurt him with that last line, "This ranch doesn't need another ghost." But it cut deep. A soft knock broke the stillness. Isadora stood in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw set. She looked like she was about to say something sharp, but instead she softened just enough to speak low. "You should have told me. I didn't know that she was pregnant." He nodded. Would it have changed anything, she asked. He didn't answer. Her eyes narrowed. "Because I saw how you looked at her, like something you lost and forgot to mourn. That's not fair." She stepped closer. "Is it true? Is the baby yours?" "Yes." She inhaled sharply, as if she still hoped it wasn't. "And now what are you going to run back to her with your tail tucked?" "No," he said. "I'm going to figure out how to be part of my child's life, whether she lets me or not." "And me?" she asked. "Where do I fit?" Tomas looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw how far they were from each other. They'd never built anything real, just filled silence with plans and paperwork. "I don't know," he said. She left the room without another word. By morning, Tomas had saddled his horse before sunrise. He didn't go to Torreon. He didn't go to the office or the city estate. He rode back toward La Amada. The sun was still low when he reached the ridge. From that height, he could see the roof of her house, the rows of chile growing again, the thin smoke of her chimney curling toward the morning sky. It looked so small from here, so stubborn and beautiful. He didn't ride down, not yet. Instead, he sat there, hat tipped forward, remembering the mornings they used to start with the same silence. Her barefoot on the porch, watering the marigolds. Him lacing his boots. No enemies, she had said. but not the same. He didn't know how to become the man she could trust again. But he knew he couldn't ride away this time. The wind carried the scent of dust and citrus blossoms. His fingers clenched the reins, and for the first time in months, he didn't feel like a man chasing more. He felt like a man who'd already lost too much. No vine a recuperarte. Vine a decirte que estaba embarazada, pero ya había cerrado la puerta. The knock on the door had felt like an earthquake. Mari stood on the Aguilar estate steps with her shoulders squared and her heart pounding in her throat. Her hands, still raw from pruning fig trees that morning, trembled slightly around the folds of her shawl. She had practiced the words on the ride. There whispered them to herself over the clatter of the mule cart. Estoy embarazada. Solo vengo a decírselo. Nada más. Just the truth. No begging. No drama. But when the door opened, it wasn't Tomas. It was a woman. Tall, hair slicked back tight, silver earrings that looked too heavy for her ears, lips painted wine dark even at mid-morning. Isadora Sáenz didn't say hello. She didn't smile. Mari straightened anyway. I'm here to see Tomas. The woman didn't move. He's not available. Mari frowned. It's important. Isadora gave her a slow, deliberate once-over eyes trailing from her dust-stained dress to her cracked sandals. You're his ex-wife, aren't you? Mari hesitated, then lifted her chin. Yes. Well, Isadora said, crossing her arms, he's moved on. Whatever you think you need to say, he doesn't need to hear it. He's busy. With me. Building a future. And it doesn't include you. For a breath, Mari didn't react. Not even a blink. She'd known Tomas might not answer kindly. She hadn't expected someone else to answer coldly. I don't want him back, Mari said, voice steady. This isn't about that. Isadora tilted her head. Then what is it? Mari hesitated. Her stomach felt tight, like the baby knew something was happening. But the woman's face didn't soften. She just stared like a gatekeeper guarding something gold. Mari swallowed. Just tell him I came by. And with that, she stepped down and left. Her hands burned from gripping the reins too hard. She didn't cry, not then. Not when the cart jostled over rocks. Not when the wind blew grit into her eyes. Not even when the valley came into view and the shadows across La Amada stretched long like arms, offering comfort she no longer trusted. She only cried that night alone, curled around her knees with her hands over her stomach. The kettle hissed on the stove. The baby kicked gently, as if trying to reach her heart through her bones. She'd come to offer Tomas a truth. Not to win him back. Not to reopen old wounds. Just to share the responsibility of something already blooming inside her. But the door had closed. And she wasn't the kind of woman who knocked twice. After that day, she said nothing to anyone. Not to Doña Pilar. Not to the women at the market who glanced at her belly and whispered. She buried herself in work, milking, weeding, mending clothes, cleaning stalls, moving, even when her body ached. If she stopped, the silence would catch up, and that was more dangerous than labor. Doña Pilar had noticed the changes first. You're quieter, she said one evening, grinding dried chamomile blossoms. And you're eating less. Mari didn't look up from her sewing. Just busy. The older woman made a sound in her throat, part laugh, part sigh. You carry that baby like a soldier carries a flag. Brave, but too tight. Mari finished the stitch, clipped the thread. I don't have time for loose things. She didn't explain the rest. She couldn't. Not even when Pilar laid her hands on Mari's stomach, and closed her eyes with that strange, quiet wisdom she had. "He's strong," the healer murmured. "Stubborn, like his mother." Weeks passed. Her belly grew heavier. The goats followed her like shadows. She walked slower, but she still walked, still worked, still bled the pride of a woman who wouldn't be pitied. In town, people stared, not cruelly, not kindly, just with that mix of curiosity and judgment that sticks to unmarried women like dust in a dry season. Some whispered that Tomas must be the father. Others claimed she'd taken up with Don Vicente, the widower 2 farms over, who helped with her fencing once a week. None of them asked her, and she didn't offer, because it didn't matter. What mattered was that the child inside her grew, that his heartbeat echoed through the stethoscope Pilar brought every Friday, that she had enough corn in storage and clean water in the well, that the house hadn't leaked since she'd patched the roof. What mattered was that she hadn't broken even when it would have been easier to fall apart. One evening, as the sky went pink and the hens roosted early, Pilar joined her on the porch. They sat in silence for a while, Mari's hands on her belly, the rocking chair creaking with every breath. "You've already named him, haven't you?" Pilar asked softly. Mari nodded. "Emiliano." "After your grandfather," Mari smiled faintly. "He was steady. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it meant something." Pilar reached over and squeezed her hand. "So will he." The wind stirred the trees, carrying the scent of sage and something older memories that had roots. That night, Mari dreamed of Tomas. Not the man she'd faced weeks ago, stunned, confused, standing in her path like a statue. She dreamed of the man from years ago, the one who had brushed her hair from her face on their wedding night, who had built the chicken coop with her hand in hand, who had kissed her neck under the fig tree while the fruit hung heavy overhead. In the dream, he didn't speak. He just stood there, eyes full of something she couldn't name. When she woke, her cheeks were wet. She wiped them clean and didn't speak of the dream to anyone, just like she didn't speak of the knock at the Aguilar house, just like she didn't speak of the offer she never got the chance to give. Tomas hadn't come after her. Not then. She told herself that was fine. But some part of her quiet, fragile, buried deep, wondered if maybe he didn't even know, and that somehow hurt more than anything. "Era nuestro hijo Tomás, pero tú hiciste que solo fuera mío." The sky was a bleached canvas above the valley, the kind of white-hot stretch that made shadows blur and sweat sting the eyes. Mari crossed the yard with a bundle of leña pressed against her stomach, her hips aching from the added weight. The baby had dropped lower in the past week. She could feel it in the way her center of gravity shifted with every step, how her breath shortened with each incline. Still, she moved with purpose. She always had. She didn't hear the horse at first, just the sound of hooves blending into the rustle of dry wind, until they stopped. Sharp, sudden. When she turned, her breath caught. Tomas sat in the saddle alone this time, not wearing the same fine coat she'd seen him in with Isadora, but a plain cotton shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Dust clung to the hem of his jeans. He looked like he had when he lived here before the meetings in Torreon, before he traded field work for city speeches. He dismounted in one fluid motion. The horse snorted, stomping once, then stilled. Mari kept walking. "Let me carry that," he said, already moving toward her. "No." She shifted the wood higher in her arms. "Mari, don't touch me." Tomas froze mid-step. Her voice wasn't raised, but there was something iron-hard in it. She walked to the porch, climbed the steps carefully, and set the leña down beside the door. When she straightened, he was there again, closer now, watching her, like she might vanish if he blinked. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "Good." Because I'm not in the mood to argue with ghosts. I'm not a ghost. You are to me. They stared at each other, the space between them heavy with unfinished sentences and choices they hadn't dared name. Tomas looked down at her belly, then back to her face. His voice dropped. How long did you know I found out 3 weeks after you left? His jaw worked, muscles twitching. You should have told me. She let out a bitter breath. I did try. Do you remember that day I knocked? I waited. He shook his head slowly. You never came. I did. Isadora answered. Told me you didn't want to see me. His eyes widened and something like shame bloomed behind them. She didn't say anything. No, she wouldn't have. Mari crossed her arms under her belly. She told me you were building your future, that there was no place in it for me. Tomas looked away, dragging a hand over his mouth. Dios. I wasn't there to win you back, she added, voice tight. I wasn't chasing anything. I came to tell you that a piece of you was growing inside me. That was all. He looked up, guilt stark on his face. Mari, but you had already moved on. You replaced me before I could even catch my breath. It wasn't like that. No. Her eyes flashed. 3 weeks, Tomas. That's all it took. I was hurt. I thought we were done. We were, she said, but that didn't mean we stopped being human to each other. Silence. The breeze lifted her skirt slightly, the edge of her shawl dancing across her arm. I didn't know, he said again, softer now. If I had. But you didn't. And I carried it alone. Every month. Every pain. Every flutter. Every doubt. Alone. He stepped forward. Let me help now. Her hands balled into fists at her sides. Why? Because I should have been there. Because I want to be there. Mari's voice cracked even though she tried to hold it steady. You were supposed to be there. But when I needed you, when I stood on your doorstep holding the biggest truth of my life, you weren't the one who opened the door. I know, he whispered. I know. She wiped at her eyes with the heel of her palm, frustrated by the sting she hadn't allowed in weeks. Tomas reached for her, hesitated, then dropped his hand. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, but I'm not walking away this time. Mari looked up at him, really looked. There were new lines around his eyes. His shoulders didn't sit quite as high. He wasn't the same man who left. But he wasn't the man she needed either, not yet. I'm not asking you to walk away, she said. I'm just not asking you to stay. He nodded, swallowing hard. Behind them, the creak of a wagon caught their attention. A figure approached from the trail, Isadora riding in a polished carriage drawn by a pair of black horses. Her wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow across her face, but it couldn't hide the tension in her jaw. Tomas tensed. Mari didn't move. Isadora stepped down with practiced grace boots clicking against the stones. Well, she said coolly, eyes flicking between them. What a touching reunion. Mari raised an eyebrow. This is my land. You're not invited. I don't need an invitation. I came to speak with Tomas. He's busy. Tomas stepped between them. Isadora, what are you doing? I came to remind you that we have plans. A wedding, a future, and it doesn't involve digging up the past. Tomas exhaled slowly. We need to talk. Later. She ignored him. Eyes locked on Mari. You think you can trap him with this? A child doesn't erase a failed marriage. Mari's voice was quiet, but firm. I didn't trap anyone. I came here to raise my child in peace. My fiancé doesn't need this chaos. He's not acting like your fiancé, Mari replied. Tomas turned to Isadora. This isn't your business. It is when it derails everything we've built. What we've built, he cut in. What have we built? Isadora business convenience. She stepped back, wounded. I made a mistake, he continued. I thought I could move on without looking back. But I was wrong. Isadora looked at him, then at Mari, then back again. So this is it, you're staying here. I don't know yet, he said honestly. But I know I can't pretend none of this matters. She stiffened her lips, trembling. You'll regret this. Mari turned toward the porch. Only the ones who run usually do. Isadora climbed into the carriage without another word, and the driver snapped the reins. As the wheels crunched away down the dirt path, Tomas looked at Mari again. The silence was thick, but not angry. Let me work, he said finally. Let me do something to help. Anything. Mari didn't answer at first. Then she gestured toward the pile of split wood. You want to help, she said. Stack it, before the sun goes down. Tomas nodded, rolled up his sleeves, and Mari, tired and sore, walked inside, heart heavy, but lighter than it had been in months. Ese niño lleva sangre aguilar, y un aguilar no se cría entre gallinas y leña. Tomas hadn't set foot in the main house of the Aguilar estate in nearly 2 weeks, and the place felt colder than he remembered. Not just from the thick adobe walls, but from something older, like the house itself had learned how to hum with judgment. Don Nazario Aguilar sat in his leather chair beneath the mounted stag, a glass of mezcal sweating in his palm, his boots crossed as if he'd been waiting for this confrontation. Tomas stood in the center of the room, fists clenched at his sides. She's pregnant, Papa, he said, and the baby is mine. Don Nazario didn't flinch, so I heard. You knew word travels fast in this town. He took a slow sip. Especially when a Carrillo girl shows up with a belly full of Aguilar blood. Tomas's jaw tightened. It's not gossip. It's my child. And what exactly do you plan to do with that responsibility? I want to be part of his life. Don Nazario's laugh was low and bitter. Part of no mijo. You either take control of the situation or you let it drown you. There's no halfway with blood. I'm not trying to control anything, Tomas said. I'm trying to fix what I broke. Fix. His father stood now slow and imposing. Let me remind you what you're risking. You have a future with Isadora, a merger between families, access to land and money your generation couldn't dream of, without my name behind it. And you're ready to throw all that away to go play campesino again with a woman who couldn't even keep your ambition alive. Tomas stepped forward, eyes flashing. Don't talk about her like that, Nazario scoffed. Son, I built this family's name with sweat and blood. I buried my own desires for the greater good. That's what being an Aguilar means. Sacrifice for legacy. Tomas stared at him, heat rising in his chest. You call that sacrifice, you mean control. Call it what you want. The older man walked to the bar, pouring another drink. But that child is mine as much as yours. And I'll be damned if he grows up hauling firewood and eating beans under a tin roof. Tomas felt the air leave his lungs. Is that what you think of her, of me? I think you've forgotten who you are, Nazario said, and I think it's time you remembered. Tomas turned without a word and walked out. The screen door slapped behind him, the dry wind catching his shirt as he crossed the courtyard. His boots stirred up dust, but his mind stirred more. His father's words spun inside him like a wasp hive. Mine as much as yours. It was that phrase that kept repeating. That night he didn't return to Torreon. He didn't sleep at the big house. He rode instead to the only place that didn't feel poisoned, La Amada. But Mari wasn't alone. The scent of sage and cinnamon drifted out the open window, and inside he saw her seated at the table across from a woman with gray braids wrapped into a bun and a white apron stained with herbs. Doña Pilar. He dismounted quietly, approaching the porch without knocking. Mari spotted him through the screen and waved him in, not surprised. Pilar looked up with sharp eyes. You're late. I was wondering when you'd show. Tomas gave a tired nod. Evening, Doña. She's been waiting for your shadow to stretch across that road, Pilar muttered, rising with a sigh. I'll give you two some space. As she passed, she whispered in his ear, Speak with your heart, not your father's tongue. He didn't reply, just watched her walk into the night, a shape carved from old soil and harder truth. Mari stood slowly, wincing as her hand moved to her lower back. Well, Tomas sat across from her. He knows. Mari looked at him unsurprised. He wants the baby. Her breath caught. What do you mean wants, he said. The child is Aguilar blood. That he won't let him grow up here. Said a legacy like ours shouldn't be wasted on goats and firewood. Mari laughed bitterly. Then maybe your legacy is the problem. I agree. She blinked. What I told him, he was wrong. That I wasn't leaving. That I'd do whatever it takes to be part of this child's life. Mari leaned back, folding her arms across her belly. Tomas exhaled. I'm not pretending this fixes anything. I'm just telling you the truth. He'll come for you, she said. Or worse, for the baby. That man doesn't let go of what he thinks he owns. I know. Mari looked away toward the window. Outside, the moon had risen pale and round, hanging just above the orchard. What do you want, Tomas? He didn't answer right away. I want to undo the damage, he said finally. But I can't. So I want to earn a place in your life, in his life. Whatever you'll give me, I'll take it. Even if it's just a corner of the porch and a job cleaning stables. Mari stared at him, face unreadable. Then softly, I don't want charity. It's not charity, he said. It's love. Maybe late. Maybe broken. But it's real. She rubbed her belly eyes full of something older than forgiveness. He kicked today, she said. Tomas smiled. Really, she nodded. Right under my ribs, like he's fighting for space. He laughed once. He's got your spirit. Mari gave him a long look. He deserves more than just a name. I know. I don't need money. I'm not offering it. I don't need a man to fix things. I know. Silence hung between them again, but it wasn't empty. It was thick with possibility, with the slow, difficult beginnings of something unspoken. Then Mari asked, What happens when your father pushes harder? Tomas's jaw clenched. He already has. She waited. I'll stand in front of whatever he sends. Mari's eyes narrowed. Will you stand beside me? He nodded, eyes locked on hers. Every damn time. From the dark outside, the sound of approaching hooves echoed again, this time from the road to town. Pilar's voice called out from the path, low and urgent. You two might want to brace yourselves. A man in a dark suit, dusted with travel, stepped into the porch light. I have a letter, he said, pulling it from his leather satchel. From Don Nazario Aguilar. Mari took it slowly. Her fingers trembled. The man tipped his hat and walked away. Tomas watched her unfold the envelope, her breath catching as she read. Then she looked up, her face pale. He's offering to buy custody. Mi hijo no está en venta. The fire crackled low in the hearth. As Mari sat at the kitchen table, the letter spread open before her like a wound. The air inside La Amada was thick with the scent of wood smoke and tension. Her hands were still, but her jaw flexed as she read the lines again, slower this time, trying to catch the part that made any sense. Tomas stood near the doorway, hat in hand, his body tight with fury. He hadn't spoken since she showed him the letter, oh no, really. Just muttered curses under his breath, pacing back and forth like a trapped bull. Mari finally looked up, her eyes sharp. He offered 500,000 pesos. Tomas dragged a hand through his hair. I'll kill him. You won't. I'll drag his old ass through every street in Coahuila and let the people spit on him. Mari shook her head slowly. That's not how we win. He stared at her, breathing hard. How are you so calm? I'm not calm. Her voice was low. I'm something else. Something deeper. The letter had been typed neatly, formally. Every line read like it came from a lawyer's mouth and a banker's pen. His offer was clear: 500,000 pesos in exchange for full legal custody of the child. Mari would sign over rights and walk away. The money could buy her land freedom security. The child would be raised in wealth with the Aguilar name far from rural limitations. He had even written rural limitations like a disease. Pilar arrived just before sunset, bringing dried herbs and a bottle of ginger tea for Mari's swelling ankles. She read the letter in silence, lips pressed thin. He doesn't want the child, she said after a long while. He wants control. Mari nodded. It's what men like him do. Tomas hadn't sat down since. He thinks this is a transaction, like buying cattle. Pilar looked at him over her glasses. Then don't let him treat you like a ranch hand. Tomas finally dropped into a chair and rubbed his temples. What if he keeps pushing, suing, digging into the courts? He knows judges. Half the town owes him favors. Mari took a long breath, slow and steady. Then we push back harder. Tomas looked up. How Mari held up the letter and tore it in two. The rip echoed in the small room, a sharp answer to a question she didn't want to hear again. This child, she said, is not a bargaining chip. He's not a line on a balance sheet. He's mine. I carry him. I feel his heartbeat. I eat and sleep and sweat for him. And if I have to stand in front of your father with my hands shaking, I will. Tomas reached across the table, gently covering her hand. You won't be alone. Pilar placed the tea on the stove and began grinding dried lavender with the back of a spoon. You'll need more than backbone. You'll need proof that this house is fit, that you can raise him safely. Mari narrowed her eyes. You think I can't? I think you can, Pilar replied. But the law doesn't always care what a woman can do. It cares what a man with money says she can't. Tomas exhaled. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to him again. No, Mari said, her voice steady. He blinked. No. She stood her back straight, despite the weight of the child pulling her forward. You already spoke to him. It didn't work. Now it's my turn. He shook his head. Mari, he's not someone you reason with. I'm not going to reason. I'm going to tell him no face to face. Let him see that I'm not afraid of the name Aguilar. Pilar gave a proud, quiet smile. By the next morning, Mari had cleaned the house top to bottom. Every corner swept, every window washed. She dressed in a clean skirt, a blouse stitched by her mother's hands, and wrapped her hair in a tight braid that fell between her shoulder blades. Her boots were polished, her spine like steel. Tomas saddled the horse. They didn't speak on the ride into town. The Aguilar estate loomed on the horizon, its white walls catching the sun like a fortress. Two gardeners paused as they passed the gates, watching Mari with wary glances. Inside, Don Nazario sat at his breakfast table, cutting into a boiled egg with surgical precision. His silver spoon clinked against the china plate as the butler announced them. Mari entered first. Tomas stayed by the door. Don Nazario didn't look up. "I take it you've come with a decision," he said. Mari stood tall. "I've come to give it." Now he looked up, slow and calculating. "Do tell." "You can keep your money," she said. "You can keep your paper and your conditions. My son will not be raised by threats and silence." Don Nazario sat back in his chair, folding his hands. "He is an Aguilar." "No," Mari said. "He's my son. He's whoever he chooses to become. He will not be raised like a nameplate on a gate." "And what do you offer him?" His voice dripped with disdain. "A life of tending goats, scraping by on land that hasn't yielded decent crops in a decade." Mari didn't flinch. "I offer him dignity. I offer him a mother who wakes up before dawn to provide. I offer him a home built with calloused hands and no debts attached." Tomas took a step forward. "She's right. You're not doing this for him. You're doing this because you lost control." Nazario ignored him. "You're emotional. Predictable." Mari stepped closer to the table. "You sent a man to offer me money like I was livestock. You underestimated me. I made a generous offer." "No," she snapped. "You made an insulting one." Nazario's lips twitched. "You'll regret this." Mari smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Not half as much as you will when he grows up and knows what you tried to do." She turned and walked out without waiting for permission. Tomas stared at his father. "This ends here." Nazario stared back, unmoved. "It never ends, Tomas. Not when you carry my blood." Tomas followed Mari out, slamming the door behind him. On the ride back, they didn't speak. The wind was dry, the trail quiet except for the rustling brush and the creak of leather. But something had changed. Mari didn't lean on the saddle horn. She sat tall, her eyes on the road ahead. By the time they reached La Amada, the sky had shifted to a deeper blue. Pilar waited by the gate arms, crossed the scent of herbs trailing behind her like smoke. "Well?" she asked. Mari smiled faintly. "He heard me." Pilar nodded. "Good. Because if he didn't, he's about to. Dicen que un hombre fuerte enfrenta a sus enemigos, pero el más valiente enfrenta sus propias decisiones." Tomas woke before dawn, sweat clinging to his skin, heart pounding like a drum too fast for its own rhythm. His boots hit the floor before his thoughts could catch up. The dream had already begun to fade, the same one again, Mari disappearing into a fog, carrying their child and him too far behind to reach her. He dressed in silence, the sky still black outside the small guest room Pilar had prepared for him home behind the main house at La Amada. He'd asked Mari if he could stay after their return from confronting Don Nazario. She'd nodded once, said, "You can stay as long as you work." So he worked. Days were long, his body unused to the kind of labor he used to call his life. Fixing fences, hauling feed, digging trenches for runoff. Every muscle ached by sundown. His palms blistered again, then calloused. It felt like penance and somehow a return. Mari kept her distance for the most part. She was nearing the end now, her belly round and low, her steps slower. But her eyes were sharp, her hands steady, her voice never weak. She ran the land like it was part of her body, knew when the goats needed birthing assistance, when the ground was too dry for child, when the clouds meant hail or just empty promise. Tomas watched her sometimes quietly as she moved through the fields or cooked with Pilar in the kitchen. There was a gravity to her, something settled and strong, like river stones worn smooth over time. He wondered if he'd ever have that kind of peace. He hadn't told her yet what else his father had said, what threats had come laced between the lawyer's lines. Not just court, not just money, but discredit, smear, quiet suggestions that Mari was unstable, unfit, that she'd tried to keep the child out of vengeance, that Tomas had returned under duress, not out of love. But today wasn't for threats. Today was for honesty. He found her just after sunrise, sitting under the fig tree behind the chicken coop, a tin cup of warm water between her palms. The birds clucked and fluttered behind her, but she sat still, legs stretched in front of her feet, bare in the dirt. He approached slowly. "Can I sit?" She nodded without looking. He eased himself down beside her, wincing slightly as his knees cracked. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, she spoke. "You're limping. Fence post dropped on my foot. Did you curse loudly?" A small smile played at her lips. He watched the fig leaves move in the morning breeze, the sunlight just beginning to streak through them. "I need to tell you something." She waited. Tomas looked down at his hands. "My father's not finished." Mari's smile faded. "He's planning to go to the judge. He'll claim you're unstable, that you never intended to tell me, that you live in unsafe conditions. He might even say you've been seeing someone else." Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. "I didn't want to tell you," he continued, "because I thought I could stop it. But I can't lie to you. Not anymore." Mari took a long breath, slow and even. "I knew it wouldn't end with a letter," she said. "I'll fight it. Every word." She looked at him, then really looked. "Why are you still here, Tomas?" The question hit harder than the threats. He hesitated. "Because I love my child. Because I need to make this right." She nodded slowly. "And me," he opened his mouth, then stopped. "I don't know if I can say I still love you," he admitted. "Not because I don't, but because the love I gave you before was selfish. I want to learn how to love you right. Even if that means giving you space." Mari's eyes glistened, but she blinked it away. "I don't want promises you can't keep. I won't make any." "Good." They sat again in silence, but something had shifted. The air wasn't so heavy. The breeze felt lighter, like it carried something almost hopeful. Pilar called from the porch, waving a piece of paper. Mail came. "Looks like something official." Tomas rose, brushing dirt from his jeans. Mari followed slowly, one hand supporting her back. He took the envelope, scanned the seal. "It's from the courthouse." She reached for it. "Let me." She opened it with steady hands. Read. Her shoulders tightened as she scanned the lines. "Well," Tomas asked. "It's a hearing notice," she said. 2 weeks from now. Custody proceedings." Tomas felt the blood rise to his ears. He moved fast. Mari folded the letter, voice flat. "He wants to humiliate me. He'll have to go through me first." She turned to him. "That's the problem. You're still thinking this is your fight." He blinked. "It's ours. It's mine, she said quietly. They'll come for me, not you. They'll tear me apart, not your reputation. He stepped forward. Then let me help. You can, but not by shielding me. I don't need a wall, Tomas. I need a partner. He nodded slowly. I can do that. Then start acting like one. We prepare. We fight. Together. The word together sat between them like a stone dropped in water. Neither dared pick it up too fast. Pilar looked on from the porch, arms crossed. You'll need character witnesses, medical records, home inspections. Mari nodded. I'll make the calls. I know people. Tomas stepped beside her. So do I. And for the first time their steps moved in sync. As they walked back inside, the sound of approaching hoofbeats echoed down the path. It was Lucero, the postal rider from Torreon, waving a newspaper as he slowed. You'll want to see this, he said, dismounting. He handed Mari the folded front page. A headline in bold black ink stretched across the top: Aguilar heir abandons city, engagement returns. To rural ex-wife amidst scandal. Tomas cursed under his breath. Mari scanned the article. Her lips pressed thin. Pilar took the paper, read over her shoulder, and muttered, "So, the storm begins." Tomas felt Mari's hand brush his. She didn't take his hand. But she didn't pull away either. Cuando todo el pueblo habla de ti, aprendes a caminar con la cabeza más alta, o no caminar en absoluto. Mari kept her head up as she stepped into the butcher's shop. Her basket swinging lightly on her arm, her back straight like a row of corn under sun. The moment she crossed the threshold, the room dipped into a hush, not sudden, not sharp, but enough to notice. She heard it all the same. The whispers, the rustle of paper behind the counter, the cough meant to cover a muttered name. Aguilar. The newspaper had made its rounds faster than wildfire in a dry season. By the time the sun had climbed over the church tower, every mouth in town had chewed on the story. Tomas Aguilar had returned to La Amada. Not just returned, abandoned an engagement, returned to his ex-wife, now pregnant, scandal, steeping like tea on every tongue. She placed the list on the counter. 2 pounds of pork belly, a dozen eggs, and a slab of cheese if you have it. The butcher, Don Romulo, didn't meet her eyes at first. But his hands moved out of habit, practiced and sure. You holding up all right, Mari? He asked finally, almost gruff. She glanced at him, one brow raised. I'm pregnant, not dying. He smirked, nodding toward the others in line. Just asking. Heard a few folks talking. I'm sure they were. He hesitated, then added quietly, For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Mari blinked. Standing in a butcher shop while the whole town gossips know. His face sobered. Raising your child how you see fit. With or without a man like that standing next to you. Mari tilted her head. Tomas isn't the man he used to be. Romulo gave her the package and a nod that said maybe he believed her, maybe he didn't. But at least he'd said something. That was more than most. She stepped outside into the glare of late morning. 2 women crossed the plaza, slowed their steps, then quickened them again. One of them glanced back, eyes sharp with curiosity. Mari didn't blink. She walked home slowly, not from fatigue, but because she had learned that moving too quickly invited weakness. The baby pressed low in her belly, now his presence unmistakable with every shift of her hips. Pilar had said it could be any week now. She'd offered to bring in a doctor, but Mari refused. She wanted this child to be born the way she was raised, on solid ground, under her own roof, with hands she trusted. When she reached La Amada, she found Tomas bent over the irrigation trench dirt, streaking his shirt sun in his eyes. He looked up when she approached. They say it's going to rain tomorrow, he said, wiping his brow. You believe that? She handed him the parcel. They also said I was raising another man's child. He opened the basket, pulled out the cheese. I think I'll take the rain prediction over town gossip. Mari let herself sit on the porch steps, breath easing out slow. I don't know what's worse, the lies or the truths twisted just enough to sting. Tomas sat beside her, careful not to crowd. They're scared of what doesn't fit the picture, he said. A rich man's son living like a ranch hand. A woman refusing a payout. A child being raised without begging permission. Let them be scared. He smiled. That's the Mari I remember. She looked sideways at him. Do you? He hesitated. I remember the way you used to hum when you shelled beans. How you kept a book under your pillow even if you only read 2 pages a night. Mari said nothing, the wind brushing loose hair from her face. I forgot those things, he said, softer now. When I left. I remembered the fights, the distance, but not the reasons I fell in love. Her throat tightened, but she didn't let it show. You think remembering is enough? She asked. No, he said, but it's where I start. That evening, Pilar brought over documents, proof of land ownership, income records, personal letters from people in the community. They spread it all across the kitchen table. You'll need character witnesses, she said, adjusting her shawl. People who can speak to how you've managed this place. I can speak for myself, Mari said. And you will, Pilar replied. But the law listens louder when more voices echo yours. Tomas flipped through the stack. I have someone. My old professor from Torreon. He's known me since before the politics. I can ask him to testify on Marat's behalf. Pilar gave a tight nod. Good. Bring him. That night, Mari couldn't sleep. She stood on the porch long after everyone else had gone to bed, the stars spread wide above her, the night full of breath and question. She rested one hand on her stomach, the other wrapped around a cup of warm milk. She didn't notice Tomas until he stepped out beside her barefoot, holding his boots in one hand. Couldn't sleep, he said. She nodded. The wind keeps changing. They stood like that side by side as crickets chirped from the field. Then Mari asked, almost too quietly, what if the judge believes him? Tomas didn't answer right away. Then we show him who we are. She turned toward him. And who are we? 2 stubborn fools who won't let blood or money raise our child for us. Mari let the silence sit. Then finally she reached for his hand, not as a symbol, not as a promise, just as something solid in the dark. He didn't let go. At sunrise they rode into town again. Not hiding, not rushed. Mari wore a simple white dress, her braid long and tight down her back. Tomas rode beside her, back straight, eyes forward. People watched. They always did. But for the first time, Mari didn't feel their gaze like a weight. She felt it like weather, unavoidable but not defining. They passed the church, the fountain, the plaza. The newspaper stand with the same story still pinned to the board curling at the corners. At the courthouse steps, they paused. Mari looked up at the thick wooden doors. He's going to try to tear me down, she said. Tomas met her eyes. And you'll still be standing when he's done. She took a breath and climbed the stairs. En ese tribunal no solo defendí a mi hijo, me defendí a mí misma y gané. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Mari sat in the wooden chair, hands folded in her lap, her belly pressing high against her ribs. The judge hadn't arrived yet, and the room buzzed with low voices, polite coughs, and the soft shuffle of nervous shoes. She'd expected a large courtroom. What she got was a modest chamber, no more than 20 chairs, a single ceiling fan, creaking overhead. But it didn't make the moment feel smaller. The stakes were still enormous. Tomas sat 2 seats away, shoulders squared, his eyes scanning the room like a soldier before a skirmish. He wore a clean shirt and boots scrubbed to the bone. He hadn't shaved despite Pilar's suggestion, and Mari was secretly glad for it. The stubble suited him, made him look less like an Aguilar and more like a man who'd earned his place. Don Nazario entered precisely 2 minutes before the session began. Flanked by his lawyer, a lean man in a pale blue suit with a voice like vinegar, and 2 of his business partners. Not family. Strategically chosen character witnesses. They wore gold watches and smug certainty. Nazario didn't look at Mari. Not once. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Arellano entered, glasses low on his nose, robes loose on his narrow frame. He glanced around the room like he'd seen it all before and expected this to be more of the same. The hearing began. The lawyer, Licenciado Suarez, opened with a gentle voice and a poisoned tongue. He praised Mari as a strong woman, no doubt, but pointed to her modest income, her remote property, the rural limitations of raising a child without stable infrastructure or a complete familial unit. He gestured to the article entered into evidence. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "this is not about punishing a mother. This is about securing a future. With education, health care, legacy." Mari stared straight ahead, jaw locked. When it was her turn, she stood. No lawyer, no papers in hand. "Just her, Your Honor," she said, voice steady. "This child is not a theory. He's not a hypothetical investment. He is real. He is mine. And every kick, every ache, every hour I have carried him, I have done so with intention and love." She looked directly at Suarez. "I didn't come here to prove I'm wealthy. I came to prove I'm worthy." A murmur rolled through the room. Mari continued. "The Aguilar family has money, power, but that doesn't mean they have the right to take what isn't theirs. A child isn't a chess piece. He's not legacy. He's not vengeance." Tomas stepped forward. "If I may." The judge gave a small nod. Tomas cleared his throat. "I came here prepared to say I support Mari's claim, but that's not strong enough. What I mean is I trust her. She's the better parent between us. If it comes down to choosing one, it should be her." Even Mari turned her head. Tomas swallowed hard. "My father wants a symbol. I want a son. And I believe in giving him to the one person who's been fighting for him since the first day." The judge asked questions about property, safety, food, education. Mari answered each one plainly. Pilar testified next, calm and direct, citing midwifery records, community support, and a network of women ready to help. Professor Ramirez Tomas's mentor from Torreon arrived late but delivered a clear, quiet endorsement of Mari's independence and Tomas's transformation. It all felt too fast and too slow, the minutes stretching and collapsing at the same time. Don Nazario didn't speak until the end. He rose, buttoned his jacket with precision, and addressed the judge with the voice of a man used to being heard. "This is not about power," he said. "It's about responsibility. My son made mistakes. This woman," he gestured lazily toward Mari, "has passion, I don't doubt it. But emotion doesn't build futures. Structure does. Name does." He paused for effect. "I am offering to raise this child in a house of order, opportunity, influence, that cannot be overlooked." Mari stood again uninvited. The judge didn't stop her. She looked at Nazario like someone measuring a storm. Order without love is a cage. Nazario's jaw clenched. I may not have land that stretches for miles, but I have a child who will never go hungry, who will never question whether he was wanted, who will know the value of honesty over inheritance. The judge leaned back, steepling his fingers. I'll take the matter under review. He tapped the gavel. Court adjourned. The room broke apart slowly like ice cracking. Mari didn't sit. She walked out on legs that felt like wood, Pilar trailing behind her. Outside the plaza shimmered in the noon heat. Vendors kept working. Children darted between benches. Life moved on unaware. Tomas caught up to her. You were incredible. She didn't answer, just kept walking. I meant what I said. She stopped. He waited. She turned to him. Then stop just saying it. Tomas blinked. Show me, she said. When this is over. Show me. Back at La Amada, the silence was different. Not hollow. Full. Brimming with everything unsaid. That night, Pilar made caldo and tortillas. They ate quietly, the three of them. No tension. No fireworks. Just warmth. Tomas helped Mari wash the dishes. She let him. Later, in the quiet of her room, Mari sat by the open window, rubbing her belly in circles. The baby kicked once strong. You'll be okay, she whispered. No matter what that judge says. You'll be okay. The wind stirred the curtains gently. She didn't feel fear. She felt ready. Las mujeres como yo no se quiebran, parimos entre relámpagos y seguimos caminando. The sky over La Amada cracked open before dawn, thunder rolling across the hills like a god clearing his throat. Rain tapped the tin roof in uneven rhythms, loud enough to wake Pilar, who shuffled down the hallway in her nightgown, muttering prayers for the goats and checking the kitchen windows for leaks. Mari was already awake. Had been since the cramps started. They weren't sharp, not yet. Just low and deep like a warning from the earth itself. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands gripping her thighs, the air thick with the smell of eucalyptus from the poultice Pilar had laid across her back earlier that week. She closed her eyes and listened. The wind, the rain, the shift in her own breathing. The baby was coming, but she didn't panic. Instead, she stood. By the time Pilar reached her room, Mari had already pulled on a clean dress, tied her braid tight, and was lighting the small candle at the foot of the bed. It's time, she said simply. Pilar didn't ask how she knew. She'd delivered enough babies to recognize that look, the calm before the storm, the weight of a woman walking into the fire and not flinching. Tomas burst in seconds later, soaked from running through the downpour, to check the chicken coop. His boots squelched against the floorboards. I heard a noise. It's not the coop, Pilar cut him off. It's her. His eyes went wide. Now Mari nodded once. Now. They moved fast. Pilar boiling water, laying out the clean sheets. Tomas helped gather towels and brought in a bucket of well water, nearly slipping in the mud on the porch. The contractions came steadily. By mid-morning, the wind was howling like something alive. Lightning lit up the fields in white flashes. The windows rattled. The road from Torreon turned to thick red sludge, impassable. It didn't matter. Mari was already too far in. She gripped the headboard and breathed through the pain, her face slick with sweat, her teeth clenched but silent. Pilar coached her with calm, sharp commands. Breathe. No deeper. Don't fight the wave, ride it. Tomas stayed outside the room, sitting on the floor by the door, forehead pressed to his knees. Every cry made his fists clench. Every silence was worse. Once he stood and knocked, but Pilar shouted through the wood. "Stay out! She's not a flower, she's a storm. Let her work." He sat back down. The minutes blurred into hours. Inside, Mari felt like she'd left her own body. Her hands, her hips, her ribs, they were someone else's now. She wasn't afraid, but she was no longer thinking, only moving, pushing, enduring. And then suddenly the sharpness broke. A gasp, a cry. And the cry wasn't hers. It was high and new and impossibly loud. Pilar laughed softly. "There he is." Mari slumped back, tears spilling down her cheeks without her knowing. Pilar cleaned the baby with swift, gentle movements, placed him on Mari's chest. He was red-faced and furious, squirming like he already had opinions about the world. Mari stared down at him. He quieted almost instantly. Tomas didn't know when the door opened, only that Pilar's hand suddenly touched his shoulder. "She wants you." He rose so fast he nearly knocked over the basin. When he stepped into the room, he forgot how to breathe. Mari sat propped up on pillows, the baby cradled against her chest. Her hair clung to her temples, her skin flushed and glowing like embers. She looked exhausted and radiant. He moved closer, slow. "He's okay." Mari nodded. "He's perfect." Tomas swallowed hard. "Can I?" She shifted, letting him take the bundle carefully. He held the baby like something sacred, eyes wide. The tiny fists waved in the air. The boy's eyes opened, briefly dark and unfocused. "He has your mouth," Tomas whispered. Mari smiled faintly. "And your stubborn chin." He chuckled once, throat tight. "What's his name? I was waiting for him to tell me." Tomas looked at her, confused. She shrugged. "Some babies are born with names written in their bones. You just have to listen." He stared at the baby a little longer, heart thudding so hard it echoed in his ears. "Emiliano," he said finally. Mari closed her eyes. That's it. They stayed there in the quiet stormlight, all three of them. Later, when the sky began to clear, Pilar brought soup and blankets and told Tomas to sleep for a few hours before he passed out in the hallway. He didn't sleep. He sat next to Mari's bed, watching the rise and fall of their son's tiny chest. That night the rain stopped. The wind eased. The land outside looked washed clean like it had been preparing for this moment. Tomas stepped out into the cool air, staring up at the stars blinking through the clouds. His father's threats, the court, the headlines, they would all still be waiting. But so was something else, something stronger. He wasn't just standing at the edge of a fight anymore. He was standing at the beginning of a life. Algunos hombres heredan tierras, otros deben arar las suyas con las manos rotas. Tomas stood in the field behind La Amada, the early light warming the soil as the breeze danced through the mesquite trees. The land had never looked greener. The rain had soaked deep, and shoots were already pushing through the red clay, stubborn and alive. He could hear Emiliano crying inside the house, Mari's voice gently rocking him back to calm. The sound didn't distract him, it anchored him. In one hand, Tomas held the letter his father had sent 2 days after the birth, a final warning. Withdraw your claim, or I'll bury you in court. He hadn't told Mari yet. She was still healing her body, recovering from the storm of labor. She walked slowly now, cradling Emiliano close. Her steps careful on the old tile floors. But the letter burned in his pocket. Not just because of what it said, but because of what it meant. He had run once. Left her. Traded her love for polished floors and long meetings and a future that had nothing to do with soil or family. And now he stood ankle-deep in dirt arms full of calluses and guilt, wondering if that debt would ever be paid in full. Behind him, footsteps approached. It was Pilar. She didn't speak at first, just stood beside him looking out over the furrows. "He's growing already," she said, voice low. "Strong lungs, that one." Tomas nodded. "He fights in his sleep, like he's dreaming of being free. Maybe he knows what it costs." He turned to her. "He's going to have to grow up knowing he was a prize in a war." "No," Pilar said. "He's going to grow up knowing he was fought for." Tomas exhaled, rubbing his eyes. "I'm going to have to go back." Pilar looked at him sideways. "To your father," he nodded. "He won't bend," she warned. "Then I'll break him." He didn't say it with anger. He said it like a vow. Quiet. Sharp. That night he told Mari everything. She sat across from him at the kitchen table, one hand curled protectively around Emiliano, who lay sleeping in a woven basket lined with flannel. When Tomas finished reading the letter aloud, Mari didn't speak for a long time. She stared at the flame dancing in the candle glass. "Then he won't stop, Tomas. Not until he wins or you lose." Tomas leaned forward. "Then I'll change the game." Her eyes met his. "What does that mean? I won't just fight him from here. I'll take it to him, on his land, with his rules. If the judge wants clean lines and witnesses, and a man who won't disappear, then I'll give him that." Mari shook her head slowly. "You don't owe him that. I don't do it for him." She looked down at their son. "Then don't leave without saying goodbye." He reached across the table, brushed her hand. "I won't leave. I'll go, and I'll come back." By morning he had packed only what he needed: a clean shirt, boots, a bundle of documents Pilar helped him gather, and the letter. He kissed Mari's forehead, kissed his son's. "I won't let him write our story." She didn't cry. She only said, "Bring back the ending we deserve." He rode out before the sun fully rose, the air still chilled from the night. The road to Torreon stretched long and winding, familiar and heavy. Every turn brought a memory. His first escape, his first mistake. But this time he wasn't riding away from something. He was riding toward it. Don Nazario's house was too large for its own good. Every corner manicured, every tree sculpted the kind of beauty that smelled more of control than love. Tomas handed his horse off to a boy at the gate and walked up the steps with dirt on his boots and a fire in his chest. The butler blinked at him, confused. "Señor Aguilar, where is he?" The man stammered, stepping aside. Tomas walked straight into the study. Nazario looked up from his desk, unbothered. "Back for your inheritance," Tomas tossed the letter on the desk. "I'm back to end this." Nazario leaned back. "End what exactly?" "The war you started. I offered security. You chose pride." Tomas stepped forward. "You offered chains. We chose freedom." Nazario narrowed his eyes. "You think the courts will side with a woman like her? With you, I think they'll side with the truth. And if they don't, I'll make sure the whole country sees what you've done." He pulled another paper from his coat. An affidavit notarized. Witnesses listed. Community leaders who had signed their names. Nazario read it with a frown. "You're staging a rebellion. I'm building a family. You're making enemies." Tomas smiled coldly. "I was born with one." Nazario slammed the paper down. "You walk away from this. You walk away from everything I built." Tomas leaned forward. "I already did." and I found something better. Nazario stood slowly, his face pale but hard. You're no son of mine. Tomas nodded. Then you won't miss me. He turned and walked out without waiting for permission. On the road back, the clouds threatened more rain. But Tomas didn't care. The storm had already passed, and this time he was still standing. Y al final no ganó el más rico ni el más fuerte. Ganó el que supo amar sin miedo. The courthouse doors creaked open with the same groan they always had, but this time Mari walked through them with Emiliano in her arms and Tomas at her side. The baby cooed, wrapped tight in a woven blanket Pilar had made the week after he was born. His tiny face peeked out like the first blossom of spring, and the women who passed on the steps offered quiet smiles, not whispers, not shame. Inside, the judge was already seated. Judge Arellano didn't look up right away. He adjusted his glasses, flipped through his notes, tapped the desk twice. Only when silence had fully settled did he speak. I've reviewed all submitted testimonies, he said, from both parties, as well as personal statements, character references, and the supplemental materials filed by Señor Tomás Aguilar last week. Don Nazario sat still on the other side of the room, his expression unreadable. His lawyer had returned, but the sharpness in his eyes had dulled. The confidence had cracked. Mari held Emiliano close. She didn't glance at them. Her eyes stayed on the judge. Custody, as you all know, is not a matter of wealth, nor bloodline, nor legacy. Arellano continued. It is a matter of safety, of stability, of love. And the court has seen enough. He took a long pause. This child, Emiliano Aguilar Rivas, will remain in the full custody of his mother, Maria Fernanda Rivas. The room didn't react at once. It was too quiet, too still. Like no one wanted to breathe until it was real. Tomas blinked. His chest rose, then dropped in a long, shaking breath. The judge wasn't done. Mr. Aguilar Tomas, I've also considered your petition to formally renounce any claims of inheritance under Don Nazario Aguilar's estate. Is that correct? Tomas nodded. Yes, Your Honor. You are aware of what that entails, I am. The judge gave a slow nod. Very well. It is so ordered. He tapped the gavel once. This court is adjourned. Mari didn't move. Not until the judge rose and disappeared through the side door. Not until the room began to stir. Then she stood. Tomas took Emiliano from her arms, cradling him carefully. The boy blinked as if the sound of justice had woken him from a dream. Mari turned. Don Nazario hadn't moved. She walked straight toward him, chin-high, shoulders even. Now you know, she said quietly, so only he could hear. That power doesn't build a family. Love does. Nazario looked at her, and for a flicker, just a second, there was something in his eyes. Regret. Or something like it. But it passed. She didn't wait for a reply. Outside, the plaza had filled with midday light. Pilar was waiting near the fountain, arms crossed, trying not to smile too early. Well, she asked. Mari stepped into the sun. We won. Pilar let out a breath like she'd been holding it for a decade. She wrapped her arms around Mari tightly, kissed her cheek, then took the baby in her arms. Let me hold him. I want him to feel what victory smells like. Tomas stood off to the side, watching them, letting it all sink in. Mari walked toward him. You're free now, she said. No more father. No more fight. Tomas looked at her. I don't feel free. I feel grounded. She smiled faintly. Good. Roots are better than wings. They walked together down the plaza toward the horses tied outside the bakery. People greeted them differently now. Not out of fear, not with sideways glances, but with real respect. They were no longer just a rumor. They were a family. Back at La Amada, the land was soft beneath their feet. The fields had already begun to recover. Rain had helped. So had hands Tomas's now worn again with the work of real labor. They didn't speak much that evening. Marie sat on the porch feeding Emiliano in the last light of day. Tomas repaired a broken step, the hammer tapping a rhythm between them. When the stars came, he sat beside her boots, dusty shirt loose at the collar. "He'll be strong," Tomas said, "but kind. I want that." Mari nodded, eyes on the baby. "I want him to know the difference between power and worth," she said. "I want him to love the land without feeling trapped by it. To know how to fight, but not need to." Tomas looked out over the hills. "He'll have our hands, but his own story." They sat in silence for a while longer, until the baby drifted to sleep. Then Mari stood. She looked at Tomas for a moment, long and sure, and she said, "You can stay." He rose slowly. "Not just as the father," she added. "Not just for Emiliano." He stepped closer. "Then how?" She didn't answer with words. She took his hand, held it tight. The stars wheeled overhead, and the land breathed in the dark. Inside the house, Pilar sang softly as she washed up dishes, her voice drifting like smoke through the windows. The storm had passed, and the roots they had planted of love, of forgiveness, of grit had finally begun to hold.